Baby girl, do your dance, TikTok. Hit that bitch from the back, flip flop, rubber ship in the pack, ziplock. Love them all thin, thick thoughts. She drippin' like Aquafina. Ride it down like I ride with that Nina. Mucha gusta that mami that chica. Micha talla, ya put that ginger.
Isn't it funny how Rock is an alligator crocodiling creature? But the nigga breathes like a horse. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another Tower of God review. I'm your host, Eddie, and you are tuned in to Sushi Map. This episode, episode 6, Khun's Resolve. The way I'm going to break down this review today is I'm actually going to start off with the positions that were introduced in this chapter. Then I'm going to go into some characterization for each of the characters. As I go through the characters, I'll talk about how their position plays into their character traits. And then we'll give an overall overview of how I felt about the chapter, differences between the manga, and my overall episode rating. I keep calling the episodes chapters. It's okay. So, jumping in, we have the 5 different positions that were given in this episode. They are Spear Bearer, Fisherman, Wave Controller, Light Bearer, and Scout. I really like this rule of 5 that they're using because it breaks down the characters. It's really easy to kind of tell who's who and what's what. So with this breakdown, I'm going to start off with our Light Bearers because they're kind of the first characters to be touched on in this episode. So those two will be Khun and Rachel, actually. We see her on a computer a little bit after we see Khun hopping into his position. So Khun makes his resolve this episode to lie to Bam. He actually has a conversation with our lady, Rachel, and she tells him, hey, look, if Bam and I are together, it's going to be bad news. And Khun is like, that's selfish of you, because he really wants to be with you. And it seems like it's more so you than it is him. So Khun's skeptical, but he decides to go ahead and lie. Rock actually listens in on this conversation, and we'll touch on Rock a little bit later, but he's not happy about that. He's not happy about Khun lying to Bam. Rock is very high-minded. Once again, very high-minded for a crocodile. I'm going to jump over to Rachel for a bit, and then I will jump back into Khun. So Rachel, she seems to be depressed this entire episode. She's in her room by herself. She has chocolate wrappers all over the floor. And actually, funny thing, in the manga, it's bananas. In the anime, it's chocolate bars. So chocolate bananas. Hey. I see you, Crunchyroll. I see you. I get it? I see you. But so, Rachel, she doesn't want to be around Bam. And we can see her kind of slurking off on the side and just kind of being away. And she actually has a different name that's on her door, and it's Mitchell Light. She also, there's a point where she looks and she sees Bam with all of his friends. And they kind of turn away and walk away from her during this episode. And you kind of get this feeling that Rachel's really sad. Something is very, saddening her. And we see her talking to Bam about her goals and ambitions to climb the tower and see the stars. And he's just like, don't go. And she went, and now she sees that Bam he has all these friends, he has these people, and she's kind of jealous. It's like the girl that curves you, but then kind of still wants to be in your life. Yeah. So I wouldn't say that the author is a misogynist per se, but we're getting a little bit of misogyny. Misogyny. Yeah, see? Okay, so anyways, moving on. Our next position that I'm going to cover, which will be our scouts. Scouts are fun because their requirement is to make friends. So Shibisu and Hats actually are both scouts, and they have to go around and make friends with everyone. They run into Bam and Khun, and Khun's like, I don't like y'all. And Bam's like, oh, new friends, yay. So they sync up. Hats is not very good at making friends, but he is very perceptive as a scout. So Shibisu, on the other side, is very good at making friends. Shibisu, on the other hand, is very good at making friends, but not as perceptive. He's still kind of a little slow. And we see him invite Dorsey over to the table, and he's kind of just womanizing a little bit, and We see him interact with a Black March, and Black March is like, he's ugly. So Shibisu's like regular. Next, we'll jump into the fisherman. I'm going to end on the wave controller, I think, because that's Bam, and there's a lot of characterization there. So next we have the fisherman. We have Anaak and Endorsi. Those are the main two fishermen that we see. The rest of them, they kind of don't matter. This is actually towards the end of the episode where we get the full characterization, but I'm going to start at the beginning with Anaak. So Anaak has the Black March currently, and Endorsi's like, hey, that's Yuri's weapon. It's not yours. And Anaak's like, fuck you, princesses of Jihad. I don't care. And it's great. It's great. And Anaak splits off from her team. She's kind of just, she's for herself. She's doing it for herself. And we actually see one of my favorite panels in the manga towards the end is where she says that she's doing this to avenge, I think it was a chicken pie cook. It's my favorite panel in the manga because this was the moment for me when I got hooked into Tower of God, when I saw Anaak's backstory. So that's part of the reason why I always proclaim Team Anaak. We also see that Anaak has a little bit of Shinsu control towards the end when she's fighting Endorsi. And her goal is to take out Endorsi and to take out all of the princesses of Zahad. So it's going to be an interesting journey. I don't know if she's going to be able to achieve her goals, but I'm rooting for Anaak. I'm really rooting for her because she is actually Anaak Jr., and her mother is supposedly dead, according to Khun, the light bearer. So, next we have Endorsi, cocky, just all cockiness. Like, she's an alpha female, and it's great. The thing is, though, I like Yuri's version of alpha femininity because Yuri's just on her own. I'm a Yuri fan over Endorsi, but Endorsi, she got cool points. She got cool points today. So she goes over to Bam's table. She talks about how she's a princess and how she can't be in love. This is a very important characterization for the princesses of Zahard. They cannot be in love. Keep that in mind. She also kind of taunts Anaak with this and says, hey, I toy with men's feelings and I throw them away. And she talks about how as a princess of Zahard, they're like a shoe on display that can't be purchased. So you just see how there's rules to this whole Princess of Zahard thing. Next, we go off to our spear bearers. Rock, the goat. He is the goat of all goats. But he can't throw a spear. And he's been training since the beginning of the episode. I love how Rock is just like, bam, you got to get stronger and then fight me. The Rock is he reminds me of any Aries that I've ever met. Rock is just Aries energy all day. Like, it's great. It's beautiful. Shout out to KT. Shout out to Katana. Shout out to all my Aries folks and fam out there. Anyways, moving on. He gets bested by Ghost when Ghost throws his spear during his spear bearer class, and he goes out to the wild. He's like, I gotta find myself and come back. And yeah, he also breathes like a horse. Just random characterization for him. And lastly, Rock he's suspicious of Khun. He doesn't necessarily always want to go with Khun's way, even though Khun is kind of this, director. He's pulling strings. He's trying to figure out how to manage the situation. Rock is like, yeah, but I see you though. I peep everything. Rock is in the cut. Lastly, I want to talk about our wave controllers. The reason I want to talk about them is because there's 4. We have Lori, Hwarian, Ho, and the 25th Bam, otherwise known as Yoru. So, first I want to talk about Ho. When they're in the wave controller class, they actually make these contracts with the administrator of the first floor. Or second floor. It says 2F, so maybe second floor. Yes, second floor, because this is their testing floor. So we have Ho, goes over to Bam, tries to make friends with Bam. And Bam is totally up for it. He's like, hey, I'm Bam. And Ho's like, yeah. And Lori's sitting there on the side, and he's like, hey, why are you trying to make friends with Bam? Like, you and I are on a team. We're all wave controllers here. Might as well just get together as 2 wave controllers and F shit up. Well, we find out that Ho might be weak. The way he's kind of looking down at himself when Lori kind of leaves the way, and he's like, hey, I'm trying to help out people that are weak. He's kind of just talking about himself, his own weakness. So something to note there with Lori, that he kind of doubts his own abilities. Next, we have Lori, who made a contract when he was asleep. Sleeping characters in anime, always OP. Always. Horian, who's looks over at Bam, and she's like, hey, look, dude, you got injured, I got injured, we both got injured, don't sweat it. Redhead, goated, resilient. Something's up there. Something's up there. I'm gonna leave that one alone. But then going to Bam. So Bam makes his contract with the administrator, and Bam is actually told that his contract is a shackle and not a contract to give him anything that he doesn't already have. I'm assuming this is because Bam was able to manipulate Shinsu without a contract. That's what was said. So Bam is not normal, right? The administrator, by the way, looks a little bit like Rock. You know, blue eyes, not red, but he kind of has that crocodilian thing. So just putting that out there, something to watch with the administrator. You know, what is he? What is he? What are administrators? What are they? We see that Bam he's able to make friends really easily. He still wants to be with Rachel. That is his main focus in the story. But he now has some friends, and he actually does appreciate the friends that he is making. And that's something that's really important. Bam is very soft-hearted. He's loving. He's able to kind of reach out to his friends and, you know, show love. So, moving on, I'm going to talk about some of the manga differences. So manga differences, there were only a couple of them here. One is, once again, in Dorsey's powers, not listed. Two, they don't actually show us a list of each character within the different roles within the show. In the manga, they do, so it just kind of helps us to kind of get a better picture of that. With anime, they have limited time, so they have to just kind of speed through everything. The other thing is they don't give us the teachers' names, I don't think. So that's kind of mean. I think they could have at least done like some sort of text box and said, hey, this is Yunga, the wave controller instructor, or this is Bak Dol Yu, the spear controller, or this is Ranker Hex, the fisherman instructor. So these different positions actually have instructors, and the instructors have names, and they are rankers. So this is something important to know, just like the rankers before, Lee Ro, Coffee Man, and the red hair guy. Just like them, these are also rankers. So keep that in mind. Rankers are different than regulars and irregulars. So those are our three classifications of the types of characters. Lastly, I want to give my overall feelings about this episode. I believe this episode was phenomenal. I believe this episode was really, really good. This one, I'm going to give this one a 4.5. It did a very good job of organizing the source material. I would say this episode's better than last episode. Even though last episode had more action, this episode, like, it touches something in my heartstrings that really makes me more fond of the series once again. And that point with Anaak and the way they took out the outro and they just made that sequence with her mother and that fight kind of just continue on all the way to the end, that was just a beautiful cliffhanger, and it makes you hungry for the next episode. So I'm giving this a 4.5 out of 5, and that is my synopsis. Thanks for tuning in to Sushi Mob Reviews, and I will see you next time. Keep shining.